we've got chapter 108, which is actually a pretty special number. I'll go into that in a little bit, but yeah, I mean, tell you, the weeks these days just kind of fly by, and before you know it, we're here for another chapter. So I hope you got a drink ready. We kind of left off the last chapter with Dagon, the kind of Cthulhu sea curse, special grade curse, remember? Using their domain expansion, and then we kind of left off the last chapter with the panel of Naobito just kind of standing on the beach, the looming danger, and sure enough, in this chapter we get that for sure. So chapter 108 immediately starts off with this domain expansion, which we've went with Horizon of the Captivating Skanda. So Skanda is definitely, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but just kind of a general overview. It has a lot of meanings, but the word itself, it's supposed to mean kind of grouping, like in Sanskrit. But obviously there's a lot of different interpretations of this word, and specifically we've seen this trend in Jujutsu Kaisen that has this kind of religious theme, specifically with Buddhism as well. So in terms of Buddhism, this word skanda is supposed to refer to, let me make sure I get this right. So it refers to the 5 aggregates of clinging, kind of the 5 material and mental factors that take part in the rise of craving and clinging. So they say that it's also explained as the 5 factors that constitute and explain a sentient being's person and personality. So in the kind of Buddhist terms, which is most likely what Akutami Sensei is referring to here. Now remember, I love translating Jujutsu Kaisen, and for the most part, there's not too much text, and it's not too bad translating it, but the times where I really kind of have to start scratching my head are with these very kind of like esoteric move names and things like that. So I had to do a little bit of research. But I think Horizon of the Captivating Skanda sounds pretty badass, if you ask me. And definitely kind of captures, I believe, what Akutami Sensei was trying to go for here. And it's interesting to know kind of the Buddhist connotation to it. This number 108 is actually a very kind of auspicious number. I don't know if auspicious is the right word, but it's a very kind of got a magical quality to it in terms of just kind of like its history. You see it in a lot of different cultures, and it's this kind of number that keeps on coming up in terms of like mathematics, and in terms of like spirituality and things like that. 108, I mean, it's kind of in terms of Buddhism, it's the number of material, if I'm not mistaken, it's the number of material clingings that we have in our life that we have to get rid of to reach nirvana. There's also, just like in terms of math, it has a certain quality to it as well. And if you're a fan of like Lost, for example, the numbers that keep on coming up, the 4, 8, 23, no. 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, and 42. Yep. I was probably not bad. I mean, considering I haven't watched it in a while, that left that much of an impression on me. But all these numbers add up to 108 as well. So, I mean, and they definitely use the 108 because of its significant kind of just like in history and things like that. But there's all these other different examples, but I recommend looking it up. I'm not going to go too deep into it here. Let's just get on with the chapter. So, I mean, immediately we have Nanami and Maki get hit. Remember, we're in the domain expansion now, so there's going to be the quality, the effect of the guaranteed hit, the can't miss hit, right? And in this case, it looks like they've gone kind of what this like piranha kind of theme, which is pretty cool. Definitely kind of has that ocean theme to it, but also has that kind of very dangerous quality to it, right? And Maki comments that, you know, she didn't even see it coming, which doesn't even, I mean, it doesn't even really matter, because as she kind of elaborates, it doesn't even matter whether you see it or not, it's going to hit. That's the quality of the domain expansion, right? But then Dagon obviously recognizes Naobito as kind of on a little bit of a different tier. And then boom, we get this Naobito with a secret art, which is, as far as I know, this first time that we've actually seen this specific term used. We've had terms like curse technique or like this and that, but secret art specifically, and it's unclear as to whether, like in the following pages, they mention simple domain. Simple domain, they don't, when the others have used simple domain before, like Kasumi and Ui, they don't use the word secret art. So it's unclear at this point whether simple domain is considered a secret art and whether they just don't say it or not. I have a feeling that it's kind of basically in the same thread. And whether we really need to concentrate that much on secret art or not it'll become a question later down the road, whether we see more secret arts and it starts becoming a thing. But Falling Blossom Emotion, cool naming again, as always. Akutami Sensei, very poetic in their move names, which is awesome, but it's also that much more effort to translate. But it's cool because then they talk about how it's an anti-domain technique passed down within the big three Jujutsu families. Remember, the Gojo family, the Kamo family, and the Zenin family. So perhaps it's not just the Zenins. Apparently, maybe, Kamo family people there can use it too. Maybe even Gojo can use it if he wanted to. But they go on to explain that unlike simple domain, which simple domain kind of, although not too big, it does expand its own domain. What Falling Blossom does, it's basically kind of like a barrier. It's like a kind of similar to perhaps what Jogo and Hanami were using against Gojo, which the name escapes me right now. But kind of similar in the fact that it's more just kind of like a protective, but not just protective, but it also is a counterattack, which is very cool. Which, even though simple domain is similar in that sense, simple domain kind of actually creates this area, whereas Falling Blossom Emotion is just, it's this protectant right around the body. So perhaps it is more kind of, it's the combination of what Jogo and Hanami were using with simple domain that kind of forms Falling Blossom Emotion. I don't know. Anyway, this is still very early information, so but that's part of the fun, right? But then Dagon kind of recognizes the fact that definitely Naobito is kind of the bigger threat here. So he says he's going to focus 70% on Naobito and 30% on Nanami with Death Swarm. So it seems as though even within domain expansion, we have, we have the quality of the guaranteed hit, but there's also perhaps techniques that you can use within a domain expansion, which is pretty interesting. When we've seen it with Gojo, for example, as soon as he activates it, pretty much everyone within the domain is just out of commission anyways. Jogo didn't really have time to use anything within his domain expansion. So there's still a lot we don't know about the domain expansion kind of thing, right? So, again, I don't want to say anything that perhaps isn't correct either, so I'll kind of keep it at that. Go through a couple pages here. Nanami on page 8, he's in big trouble. Even someone of his caliber, it's pretty tough for him as well. And it's worth noting as well that domain expansion is something that it seems to be only something that really only a few people can do. Remember, even someone as strong as Mahito, he wasn't able to do it, although it sounds like he acquired the technique pretty quick. He had to kind of learn it along the way. And the fact that, we know that Maki surely can't do it. Maybe not yet. Maybe she will be able to do it down the road. But Nanami, the fact that he isn't using his kind of is a flag that says he doesn't know how to use domain expansion. There have been hints about that before. Even when he fought Mahito, right? He didn't use the domain expansion to counter it. So we kind of knew that Nanami couldn't use it. But even someone of Naobito's caliber, the fact that he has to resort to Falling Blossom Emotion is perhaps a sign that even someone of his caliber can't use a domain expansion either. So it really kind of goes to show the rarity of this technique. And it kind of does remind me, I've had a couple people mention, and I thought this myself as well. It's definitely kind of got this a Bankai aesthetic to it, right? This kind of ultimate move. But, and in the earlier stages of Bleach, Bankai was kind of rare, but then, like, anyone could do Bankai as the series went on. And perhaps they'll have that kind of quality in Jujutsu Kaisen as well. We'll have to wait and find out. But yeah, Naobito's kind of out of commission as well. And I like these little kind of little tactical moments where Dagon apparently used Death Swarm to kind of block Naobito's vision as he went in for the strike and sends Naobito flying off. But yeah, then a little tussle here with Dagon and Maki. Of course, I like Maki's attitude here on page 15. You better kill me in one hit, you damn octopus, if you're gonna call me weak. I like that kind of stuff. Always, even in the face of death, Maki's got that attitude, right? But then on page 16, we see another domain expansion, and it's like, oh my god, what's going on? Chimera Shadow Garden. So it's Fushiguro Megami. He seems to have kind of... Remember when he used it previously, he very much commented how it's kind of incomplete and all that, and perhaps it's still at that stage, but he's able to kind of use it at will, at least. Whether its potency is quite strong or not is another question, but he's able to certainly use it. So which is huge, especially where we were just talking about how rare it is, right? But I love this 2-page spread here. Just this huge, I don't know what you call it, big blast of shadow. Remember, it's supposed to be kind of like a shadow realm material kind of thing going on. So, and he's able to even manipulate the shadow in a way where he's able to teleport the playful cloud. Remember the 3-section staff. So he's able to use it to... I love when powers have this kind of multifunctionality. Like if you're a fan of video games and video game design and stuff too, they always talk about how multifunctionality is a very important element when you talk about like weapons or movement and things like that. Like in very basic terms, like Super Mario, for example, his jump is not just used to get onto different platforms. It's used to get over holes. It's also used to hit blocks. It's also used to jump and then jump onto something. It's the kind of idea of multifunctionality is always a very, very high level design choice. Just the same way as like in Half-Life with the gravity gun, right? There's all these different functions to it. You can use it as a weapon. You can use it as as a tool in physics puzzles and things like that. So that idea of multifunctionality. So with Shadow Chimera Garden, it seems like he's able to use it as a huge movement technique. Not only move himself. Remember when we previously saw him use it, he was kind of like surfing through, like going in and out of the shadow and this and that, which was really cool. But he's also able to like transport items. And then Maki, of course, the little one-liners here, you're really such a cocky brat. But, with the smile on her face. But yeah, so definitely chapter 108 was had a lot of good action in here. I know I skipped over kind of the action pages and stuff, but I'm not going to go on and describe those and things. So at this point, in this one area, we've got Megumi, Maki, and Naobito, who are all part of this Zenin family lineage, right? And there's, remember, there's someone else lurking in Shibuya right now, too. So I don't know, maybe we'll see after they're done with Dagon, or I hope they're done with Dagon. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe once they hopefully defeat Dagon, then maybe they'll run into someone else, which obviously is going to play with the emotions and that dynamic and all that, right? So we'll see. Can't wait to get my eyes on chapter 109, and of course we'll be back here next week for a manga lounge on that. But hey, with that, cheers to you. You know how we do. Mata yoroshiku!